Well, good morning, everyone. Today is Monday, November 17th, and we are here for a work session with Laura Walker regarding economic development review and future planning. I'm Kristen Stevens, Chair of the Board of County Commissioners. With me is my fellow commissioner, Commissioner John Kafalis. We have Lorinda Volker from the county, our county manager. She's also from the county manager's office, but she is the county manager. And we have a whole table full of wonderful people, including Laura Walker, the Director of Human and Economic Health Services. Am I turning things over to Mark? Yeah. I'll have you let us get started, and then we'll just have folks introduce themselves as they speak. Thank you. Welcome, everyone.
Good morning, Commissioners. Good morning, County Manager. We have our Assistant County Manager behind me, too. I'll acknowledge her presence. So this is one of our quarterly work sessions for the Human and Economic Health Service area, so we appreciate your time. This is an opportunity that we like to take to either provide updates on programming or future direction, how we're leveraging partnerships, both internal within our service area, within the rest of the county departments, and also with our community partners outside of the county. So today's topic, and this kind of came up through the budget process, really, notions about maybe providing some more clarity and some current activities that are happening with our economic development group, which of course lives within economic and workforce development as a department, but they have 4 different service lines of business, really, upstairs on the 5th floor. And so Mark Johnston, who is our director for that department, has some of his colleagues here that are focused on economic development work, and they're going to give you an overview of what that looks like today and where we might be going in the future. So thank you.
Welcome, Mark.
Hi, everybody. Mark Johnston. I serve as Larimer County's Economic and Workforce Development Director. It's great to see all of you in the room, for those tuning in through video as well. So to elaborate a little bit more on what to expect today in these little less than 90 minutes, we have an agenda here to walk through around a department overview, just a kind of a quick grounding. Then we're going to spend the vast majority of our time on a deeper review of our business and economic development team. We've decided to do that through an overview, some discussion areas around 6 core service areas that we take lead on, what they are, why they matter, what are some of the outcomes, and then we're going to weave a story or two to help you understand how that comes alive here in Larimer County. We're going to end with some of our thoughts on future focus areas as we steer into 2026 and beyond. Commissioner Stevens, in terms of question and answer, we could pause at each of the 6 core areas, or we could wait, but I'll follow your lead on that.
I think we'll pause maybe after the service areas.
Okay.
If we feel like we're starting to slow down too much, let us know about time and
You bet.
we'll adjust.
You bet. Okay. And I'm going to drive our slide deck. So here it goes. We hope. Okay. So broad overview, Larimer County integrates our, hang on here, folks. So Larimer County integrates our Economic and Workforce Development Department across 45 employees. That also consists of 5 high school equivalency staff, tutors, dozens of core members in work-based learning interns here. And then, as Laura had alluded to, 4 primary service areas: economic development, workforce development, veteran service office, and a conservation corps. As the slide is reloading here, we deliver services here out of 200 West Oak. We're mobile across other county facilities in the community. And then I always like to remind folks across our public lands too with our conservation corps. Workforce development defined. Really, Workforce development, a system-wide approach of preparing people for meaningful careers while meeting the talent needs of employers. It connects education, training, career services to ensure individuals have the skills and the credentials required to thrive, of course, in a changing economy. I like to say modern workforce development not only equips job seekers with skills, but also supports lifelong learning, career mobility, it helps to remove work barriers, and supports equitable access for all. Economic development defined, the intentional effort to grow and sustain a region's prosperity by helping businesses start, expand, and succeed. And then while cultivating the skilled and adaptable workforce that they need for long-term success. I like to say modern economic development is people-centered, focused not only on business vitality and innovation, but also building resiliency, inclusive communities where residents, employers, and entrepreneurs can thrive. And then we marry these. We zipper them up into a single point department. You're going to learn a little bit more about how our business and economic development team illustrates that. But really in today's economy, talent drives competitiveness. You'll hear that called one of today's currencies is talent. Larimer County's integrated approach combines both workforce and economic development into a single unified approach, recognizing that thriving economies depend on thriving people, vice versa. And then we see that through, you can see on the slide, connecting businesses with talent pipelines, leveraging diverse funding sources. We collaborate regionally. It truly is a team sport. And we serve as a single point access place, ensuring some, more efficiency for our business community, our educators, et cetera. This is a slide that describes how it really then comes alive on the 5th floor here of 200 West Oak and in the community. So top of that slide, workforce development, weaving into economic development, weaving into both disciplines. So won't read the full slide, but a few things to point out. Career coaching and navigating, skill building, connecting people with opportunity, professional development in workshops. Let's help people modernize their approach to job search. We have a variety of work-based learning services. And then in Tune, you can see data intelligence. You'll learn more about our efforts around how we work with businesses to retain and expand here in Larimer County in northern Colorado. What are we doing to help attract new employers and new investment? We'll speak a bit about incentive strategies. And because we are unique with the workforce development system integrated, we have a particular superpower I like to think of for talent solutions. Quick slide around one team, one mission. And we start to the left. We really do connect people to meaningful work. We really do connect businesses to talent and resources. We do that to improve our community's economic well-being. And perhaps what I think most of us on the 5th floor resonate with most is we really do care, and our customers matter to a great deal. Quick overview of our resource investments. Starting at the 12 o'clock, we'll work our way around in no particular funding order here. Larimer County makes investments in our department, and in particular our economic development office. We have federal investments. We engage in fee-for-service investments, mostly through our Conservation Corps. We have State of Colorado investments, and from time to time, we'll access a philanthropic investment or another partnership investment through a municipality partner, for example. This is how the department is structured. I could have built the slide broader to include our assistant county manager, and of course our Board of County Commissioners. But we received support directly from Laura Walker, who introduced us today as the Human and Economic Health Director. I have, again, the privilege of supporting the totality of the department. And what I'm illustrating here is 4 of our associate director kind of leadership, program management. Mally Oropeza on the left leads our Conservation Corps. Marcy Kasner, who's not here today, primarily focused on our Veteran Service Office and our Workforce Development System. Janine, who I'll turn it over to here next, Janine Lettingham, our Business and Economic Development Associate Director. And then our newest team member, Will Harden. Will, all things business operations, accounting, and performance. And again, maybe to illustrate here, Larimer County is unique in our approach to economic and workforce development. So the workforce development system stands up 10 regions. And there are a couple of them adjacent to economic development. But here in Larimer County, we truly are an integrated single point team, and there's not another region workforce region in Colorado that has a single point leader, Janine, leading the full business and economic development opportunities. We just, I continue to believe that that's an efficient, effective way for us to still do the citizen work while also still doing the business work, and we're pretty proud of that. Okay, Janine, if you could introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, everyone. I'm Janine Lettingham. I'm the Associate Director of Economic and Workforce Development for Larimer County. I wanted to show you our structure as a team. So we're a team of 8, including me. I also wanted to lay out for you our different funding sources. So as Mark described, while we get Larimer County funding, we also have staff that has federal funding and some state funding. Some of the state funding in particular is around the enterprise zone. We are the administrator for the enterprise zone for Larimer County. And then in the blue boxes at the bottom, I've lined out what everyone's, the various staff's scope of work and the programs that they oversee. I won't go through that. It's a lot of copy, but I wanted you to have that so you could see what every staff member does. We're also a staff that is mixed full-time and part-time. So we have 3 staff with hours that range from 25 hours a week to 32. So wanted to point that out as well. Okay. So putting faces to names, here's the Business and Economic Development team, smiling, shining faces. The photograph over to the right is all of us during our first strategy meeting. We took a few hours to bond as a team and go bowling. You'll see that we do have a couple of people who are no longer with the organization, unfortunately. So Carol Salter, who is our nursing shortage program manager, her funding ended. It was a EDA grant. And Gabe Collette, because of cuts to Wagner-Pizer, is no longer with the organization. We do have a new addition, which is Susan Ruff, who came in on the business services side to support Andrew. So there's our team. So as a team, we've done some good strategic planning work since March. We've had 3 strategic planning sessions. We started out looking at our strengths as individuals on the team and then how we can better leverage the strengths of the team to serve in our roles. We talked through our services and programs, and we have some products, and just really assess them in terms of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities to improve, and also how things out in the economy or outside of us could impact what we do. we looked at what we call as a team unstoppable trends and how those might impact us as economic developers over time. So, for example, things like AI, how it will change the workforce, changing demographics, automation and robotics for many of our target industries. What is that going to look like for us as economic developers in the future? Then we took some time to look at best practices. What are county best practices in economic development and how are we aligned with those? There are different pillars or buckets. We'll talk to many of them. But we did a deep dive on those. We paired off as team members and did more research around each one and then really talked through how do we align? How could we get better? Should we be doing this? Does it make sense in our scenario? And we voted as a team to focus on a handful of core areas and double down. So I took that work and then crafted a vision statement, if you don't mind, for the team, which I'll read. Maybe. I think I have it. Okay. And that is, our vision is to serve as the catalyst that positions Larimer County and the region as the most competitive, business-ready, and talent-focused region in Colorado. Think we need a big, hairy, audacious goal, don't you? So I thought that was pretty big, hairy, audacious. And then that is rooted in inclusiveness, economic mobility, and community well-being. We strive to foster a place where business success fuels smart growth and a resilient, vibrant regional economy for our citizens. So going forward, that is our vision statement. So,
I'm sorry to stop you. Commissioner Shattuck McNally looks
And
like
I
she has a
apologize,
question.
Mark and Madam Chair, did we say we wanted to wait till the end? Since I have a couple of questions for this part, so how would,
We're going to kind of wait till,
Yeah,
we'll
so-
wait till Janine kind of finishes her section and then we
okay,
can
so I
ask
would like to have a
questions.
couple questions. And
Okay.
I just wanted to clarify when it was, and I'm sorry to interrupt your flow, Janine.
no
Thank you.
problem. So then thinking about how do we deliver on this vision, again, I know this is a copy-heavy slide. I'm going to run through a few things on this slide. We deliver the vision first and foremost by avoiding duplication of efforts and really delineating what is a municipal role versus a county role? How do we really support each other? And how do we support businesses that are really only in unincorporated Larimer County? We do that by working alongside our regional partners to align our regional development efforts, the READY organization, which you may be familiar with. It's Regional Economic Development Initiative. So it's economic developers from across Weld and Larimer County who work together to do business attraction and retention and market our communities. So we support that by supporting businesses to grow here. And through, of course, our superpower, again, we developing a skilled, industry-relevant workforce for the region. We also, again, market the region as a whole and represent the region out at different events where there are opportunities to attract businesses. We focus very heavily on our industry partners and through associations and our sector partnerships. And we champion small businesses and entrepreneurs. We do that in a sort of side way. We invest in partners that are focused on those communities like the Small Business Development Center, Innosphere, the Accelerator in Estes Park. So really supporting those partners that are doing that work. We provide impactful incentives to layer in for helping win, those kinds of strategic projects that we want to win for the county. And we get involved with infrastructure needs, so reducing barriers, championing those folks working on those issues and supporting those. And finally, by providing data insights or funding to get those data insights to help help us all guide making smarter economic decisions. So this one is just showing our core areas. The green are those areas where we have a primary strategic focus. The yellow is a secondary. And then this is the huge ecosystem of partners that we work with day in and day out. So economic development, as Mark has said, it is a team sport and it is a long game. So it takes all kinds of partnerships with businesses and all these key partners to make projects happen, to remove barriers, create opportunities. We like the analogy of the beehive. It's sort of a honeycomb. We're all unique bees that work together, and when we do that in a coordinated, effective way, we create this ecosystem or fabulous hive where everyone thrives. So we're going to have fun with the bee analogy throughout this with transition slides. So taking a look at what we do and our impact in these areas, I'll start out with business attraction and marketing.
Yep. So maybe before we jump in, with this could be a good pause point.
All right, Commissioner Shattuck McNally, you want to ask
Yeah.
your questions?
Couple of things. First, I really appreciate the visual about the beehive and things as a beekeeper and knowing what I try to do to, usually we try to let them just, set up the conditions and then let them thrive and do the work, right? But also just trying to, when we have things like wasp attacking, then we have to do to come in and help disrupt that.
Oh,
So I
good
could
analogy there,
So, you
too.
know what I'm saying? But we do that by changing the structure, by narrowing the input for where they can come in and attack and allow the bees themselves to find a way to innovate to protect themselves. So it just kind of resonates with me. I wanted to share that. But my first couple questions is, when you talk, let's go to the first one, the vision, and you talk about smart growth. I get a lot of pushback from people in the community. What does that mean? And I think it's great that it's in a vision statement, but I want to hear maybe from your eyes and your perspective, when we talk about with people in the public, what does that mean for smart growth?
So I would answer that is that it fits the goals of the communities where it's happening. So different communities have very unique identities and goals for their communities. So how do we support looking at those companies that are a fit? I mean, certainly regionally, we have target industry clusters that we've identified that we universally want to look at. But I do think it's really what's smart for each community.
Can I expand? And that was one of my other, and I'm sorry, Madam Chair, this one another question, but I saw the clusters. And for people listening in the public, I mean, I know what that means to me and what I think it means, what you're talking about. I'm assuming this is certain industry sectors or something. Can you expand a little bit what clusters are and what that looks like, and what does that mean for those who might be not familiar with some of that industry focus?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So industry clusters are those sort of industries that have a higher location quotient in our region than they do elsewhere across the nation. So they also have a value chain of companies behind them. It's something that has a lot of momentum in the region already that we then work to support to continue to build on. So
That's really helpful. I really love that answer. I might have to go back and watch this video and get that written down. If we could get that, I think that would be an important point for me to get that written down. So if you could write that down, that would be great. Because I do
Absolutely.
think that trying to explain that to folks, because we hear a lot about, the cities are driving economic development. So no, the county, this is part of what we do. And if we can kind of talk with our municipal partners and some of our other electeds across how we were doing this work together, I think this is an important thing to highlight with them, because I don't think they still understand this is some of the work that we do. And then my last question, so first, I think that's a fantastic thing how you explain that. That really, again, really resonates with me. The other question I have, and Commissioner Stevens and I went in 2022 to the Capitol conference with the senators, and we got to talk to a lot of industry leaders. And back then, AI was the big conversation, and it's all we heard. You got to do something about AI. You got to do something about AI. You have to have some policies. And since then, I've tried to go to conferences or forums on AI, and now I have some folks who are doing their PhD in business innovation and AI, and I talk to them weekly and just get, what are you working on? What does this look like? How does this go? And then also just talking with national and other, I know this is a concern with some other state and federal leaders. So when we talk about unstoppable trends, this is why I'm giving you that question. That tells me that when you say unstoppable trends, that says, oh, there's nothing we can do. And I understand to me that for the public, that's not what I see someone want to hear right now, just like unstoppable with the shutdown. They want us to do something. And a lot of concerns, there's a lot of information out there, how jobs are going to be wiped out. The youth are worried about this. They get out of college and there's no jobs because of the AI change. So when we say about unstoppable, we're not just like, okay, we just have to react. There's
No.
way through. So that kind of what that says to me is when we say unstoppable trends. I wanted to hear more about how are we navigating, managing, mitigating, being proactive. I know we have proactive by having a policy, and we try to have a very carefully crafted policy about that. So how are we addressing that? Because I do think this is something that I hear a lot from the age group in college all the way to about maybe late 30s, that they're concerned that this is going to be a completely different landscape. And that's what they're hearing in all the podcasts too, is that this is going to really disrupt and change what our workforce and some of our folks who are coming out of college and stuff, and their jobs won't be there. They're going to be AI generated. So I know it's a big, broad thing, but I reacted to unstoppable trends, and I wanted to hear more about how we are trying to get our county and our workforce and our communities able to be resilient or proactively mitigating some of these things.
And I hear what you're saying in terms of maybe a negative spin that some people perceive that around. I think we see it as you can't ignore it. So how do we get ahead of it? And how do we start to understand those impacts and actively work to understand those impacts? And then what can we do to help train our workforce to get ready for those, to, for example, build partnerships that we're doing with CSU to get our students out into companies early, so that they, are ahead of the game as well, and that they're positioned to stay in the county. So we're meeting with another unstoppable trend, at least in Colorado, is quantum. How do we get ahead of that and be a player in that? The Co-Y Ascend engine, how do we get involved? We're looking at doing some pretty interesting and impactful work with that whole NSF grant, providing that money continues to flow. But we see it as how do we try to get ahead of those things and prep people for them so it's not a shock.
Yeah, and you say an NSF grant. My other child in PhD just applied for one of those again because they got it last year. Got it all mentioned, but there's a lot happening in that all these spaces, and a lot of them are trying to navigate that. But I think for some of our folks here, it's just really. I know for me, I just want the members of the public hearing that we're, like you said, we're getting ahead of it. How do we help them have the schools to navigate? And because I know there's a lot of concerns from folks. There's a lot of tension and stress about what does my economic future look like? Will I ever not have to work 3 jobs to be able to afford rent? Those kinds of things. So Thank you for letting me kind of have that dialogue with you.
Thank you for the questions.
I think we're good. We'll keep moving so we can stay on track.
So business attraction and regional marketing. As Larimer County, now it's stuck. I'll keep going because there's lots on that slide too. As the county, we play a lead role in business attraction when those leads come from the state or OEDIT. We have a counterpart on the Weld side, who is Audrey Herbison. Audrey and I play a lead role in business attraction. We also provide strategic funding, and we're doing that right now through the regional branding work that's going on between Weld and Larimer. We've led that way with the $25,000 investment, and we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for supporting it in 2026 with the follow-on $25,000 investment. But, you know, a lot of people ask, business attraction, why do you do business attraction? Well, there are a lot of reasons to attract new primary businesses. First of all, they bring new, well-paying jobs and create new jobs here in the county. And they also invest in the county, so it strengthens our local economy and expands opportunities for our citizens. It also helps us continue to build and diversify our economic base so that we're not resilient or we're not dependent on a few industries with an economic turn that could be pretty devastating for our communities. So as much as we can diversify our base, that is a good goal. They introduce new technologies and innovation and new business models that helps raise our competitiveness as a county. And of course, we all care about expanding the tax base, especially now, to help fund those public services without having to go back to citizens and place more burden on them in a pretty burdened time. They also have a multiplier effect. So the multiplier effect comes in the way of bringing additional supplier and value chain companies into the county. They tend to attract other suppliers. And they also, those people with those jobs go out and spend money in our county, paying for mortgages, buying food, buying gas, all those things that circulate more money into the economy. And finally, it sends out a signal across the country that we are a business-friendly, ready-to-go community. And that, again, attracts more investment for us. In the state, I'm almost there, Mark. We follow a statewide code of ethics, and Colorado is very unique in our code of ethics. We play well as economic developers in the state. And while we pursue leads competitively, let's not be unclear about that. We're all vying for those great companies. But at the end of the day, if there's a company in place and it's an expansion, we want someone in Colorado to win that deal. Ideally, us first, which is that chart. We want to win it. And if we can't win it, we want to keep it in the region. We want it to land in Weld. And if not there, in the state. So we work very closely to do that. And yeah, I think I have covered that one. So, I'll go back a little bit. I'm going to touch on this, but below were a few of our statistics on the number of leads that we're working. This does not reflect leads that come directly to communities, and as we're well aware, our municipalities are working a lot of leads that we're not involved with unless they bring us in. But 2024, we worked 54 leads together as a region. This year to date, and I'll have a slide on this further down, it's 32 leads. So we'll talk about that.
And then Janine, give one example of a success story on an employer that actually did make a move.
Yeah, so we've had a few great success stories over the years. So in 2023, we attracted a Scottish company. So it's Integrated Growth Technologies Solutions, sorry. It's a company that was based in Scotland, founded in 2013, that creates vertical grow towers. And this technology is pretty revolutionary in the agriculture space in that it eliminates the needs for pesticides, fungicides. It reduces water consumption by 95+%. And it also doesn't require arable land. So they located at the warehouse in Loveland in a pretty, or Forge campus, thank you for that correction. The Forge campus, where they're looking to create 114 new jobs in the county over time. They're going to be the global distribution base in the U.S. For the U.S. and Canada. So that was one great story.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I just wanted to share that actually I was there that day they were visiting, and I was at the Forge campus celebration, and they pulled me, some of the other leaders pulled me aside and said, go tell them how wonderful Larimer County is. I'm like, who? And they're like, these guys from Scotland. I'm like, okay, what do we want to do? We want them to come here. And so that was an easy sell. I could tell them how amazing our county was and all the things. But I can't tell you how excited I was that, the guy's like, hey, that's pretty cool. I can't believe you wanted to talk to me. I'm like, of course, I think this is really aligns with Larimer County's values and et cetera. So I'm really excited about that one. And
Yeah.
I think it's going to be really cool. And I think that slowly that Forge is bringing in some good talent and I think success feeds on success. So I really am excited about them relocating. It's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, and they are relocated there
Yeah.
at this point. So, so why do we focus on regional attraction? I want to cue up Adam, our data guru and expert, to talk a little bit about why we are so focused on regional economic development.
Thank you. I'm Adam Crow. I'm the Economic Development Manager in Economic and Workforce Development with Larimer County. And I hesitate to say expert because the more you know about the data, the less you know, right? So that's kind of where I will put that. But we wanted to touch on some of the demographic reasons that we focus regionally. And when we talk about regional economic development, Janine will get more into this, but it's under the Regional Economic Development Initiative, or NOCO Ready. And it includes partners from both Weld and Larimer counties. We do have some partners that are also in Boulder County, especially in the Longmont area, that also join this effort. And these initiatives started with a recognition of some of the trends that we saw coming, specifically within demographics, but they were being reflected also in how businesses were making decisions and how our economy was starting to form. And this was well over 10 years ago. And so we've been doing this combined effort for about 8 to 10 years now. And what I wanted to show to you is one of the slides here, some of the data that first alerted us that we had a shared economy. And it's really about commuters. And so when we think about Highway 34 and some of our east-west corridors, you can see how many people are actually traveling along those corridors. And so some of the reasons behind this have to do with workforce, so people who are seeking employment and people who are seeking employees. They don't recognize the same borders that we do. They're not recognizing county lines. They're not recognizing state lines in a lot of cases. So you can see that we also have folks that are traveling up to Cheyenne and to Laramie. And this list goes on and on and on. You can see that almost every county in northern Colorado is either we're getting workforce from them, or we're receiving workforce. And there are some pretty significant economic factors that are starting to arise that are solidifying this even more. So Mark, if you'd please go to the next slide. What you can see here is that we have average wages and we have typical annual expenses. And typical annual expenses include everything you can think of that a household is spending money on. So it could be groceries, it could be housing, it could be transportation, all of those things. It's combined, and it's some data that we get from the living wage calculator that comes out of MIT. And then the average wage, these come from the Bureau of Labor Statistics for both of our counties. And you can see that there is a competitive advantage for someone choosing to live in Weld County and drive over to Larimer County to work. And as our economies are evolving, we do know that jobs are growing in Weld County. We also know that housing is growing in Weld County. In fact, Weld County is one of our fastest growing counties, not just within the state, but it's among the top in the nation as well. And the reason is that we have good opportunities in northern Colorado, but you also have to be able to afford to live near where you work, and Weld County offers that option. And then within Larimer County, obviously, we have slightly higher paying wages, but a lot of that comes from our industry differences. We're a little bit more high-tech on the Larimer County side. We're a little bit more agricultural on the Weld County side. So if you'd please, Mark. And you can see here that when we look at our demographics, this comes from the State Demographer's Office, We don't have as many young people as we used to if we're looking at our very youngest ages there in Larimer County. And a lot of those younger folks are still even migrating in with their families. So it's the toddlers and the preschoolers that are moving in. And then you can see this giant spike around 18 to 20. That's the CSU effect. So we have all of these workers that are coming into, or no, I'm sorry, all of these people who could be potential workers that are coming into our communities in northern Colorado, but specifically Fort Collins. And so that's our CSU students. So it's pretty dramatic. And then you can see there's another bump there with our millennials that are kind of that reddish in the middle. And those are families that have become more economically secure. This is a great place to raise their kids. Let's come here. And then you can see kind of see the Gen X, and we have a bump of people who move here to retire. But if we go and look at Weld County, it's very different. Many more young people and many more young families are establishing in Weld County, and it's that affordability effect. But they also bring great skills. So how do we as a region think about where people are moving and where they can afford to live, and then help them get to a job that is going to meet those needs, or at least maybe the job they moved here to have? And then you can kind of see here that we share some opposites in that Weld County loses some population in the early 20s there, people moving to go other directions. Oftentimes it's Denver or Larimer County when they do that. And then the bump where we have young families moving in is even higher. And again, it's that affordability piece. And when we look at migration over the years, you can see here in the red, we have our net migration. These are people moving into our counties. It could be from within the state. It could be from outside of the state. And then you can see our natural birth increases. Larimer County, we're not having a lot of kids. We're just not. So importing workforce is really, really important to us. And in some cases, importing that work from those workers from our neighbors is very important. Weld County, you can see, is very different in that they are having children. Again, it's those young families that are moving into Weld County. And because of prices, their net migration is much higher. And so, again, how do we share the fact that there are higher paying wages in Larimer County with a place for those workers to gain value through a less expensive place to work, or sorry, to live? And so these are some of the statistics that really helped us to understand that we needed to be thinking regionally and develop our regional economic initiatives and activities. And so I will turn it back over to Janine. Thank you.
Microphone back on. Thanks, Adam. So again, how do we get prospects? So there are multiple ways. Company direct to municipality, we've talked about that. Brokers, consultants bring leads to us, and Metro Denver and OEdit bring leads. This shows the process of how leads come up to us at Larimer County and upstate. We repackage them, send them down to our municipalities. We gather their submissions and package it with our regional data and our regional profiles, and then send that back down to the state. Then if we get a company that wants to go further with us based on that submission and comes in for a site selection kind of tour, we are the lead in setting those up. If they come directly to municipalities, obviously the municipalities do that work, and we come as they ask us to come to be a part of those. A primary employer, I don't think I've defined that, and the definition can be different for different communities, but the READY organization defines a primary employer as a business that produces a good or service and exports 50% of that outside of the region. So 50% plus of their revenues come from outside our region. It's new money. So I thought it would be interesting for you to understand what site selectors look for. And the way that we keep up on this is every year the Site Selectors Guild, which is an international organization of top site selectors, puts out a report. There's also an annual event down in Denver where we host site selectors into the city, take them on a tour. We haven't managed to get them as far up north as our area, but we do take a team down and present to those site selectors, and we get an opportunity to have one-on-one time with them to understand what they're looking for, and then they give us a readout of how we stack up. So The big things that site selectors look for is site readiness and infrastructure readiness. They want shovel-ready sites with utilities built out to them, permit certainty, and quick timelines. And if you can accomplish that, that differentiates you. They're also, number one, almost always, is talent and workforce. So can we empirically demonstrate that we have a workforce that's available and that is skill future ready for those industries? So it's really important to tell that labor story as we work with prospects. They also look at area risk and reputation. So companies look at jurisdictions and they look at you as, can you mitigate risk for me as a company? Are your policies aligned? Is your political environment stable, and are you aligned? And does the region have a trade and industry supply chain resilience that is of interest? They also look at community alignment. So the Site Selectors Guild report talked a lot about NIMBYism. And if you're not familiar with that acronym, not in my backyard. So if you've got a citizen contingent that's really active and projects are not happening, site selectors hear about it and they know about it and they think about it as they're looking for sites to locate projects. Then they're also looking, are you built out with your infrastructure for the future? Are you well positioned? We saw a lot of phased project leads come in this year, more than maybe last year. Adam, you can provide that context, but a lot of companies that had, pretty hefty water, wastewater requirements, utility requirements, but those over the next 10 years got ramped up pretty significantly. We had some very big projects come through. And can we handle those from an infrastructure standpoint? You have to ask the question of, do we want to handle them too? It has to be a good fit, but I think we have to be ready as a community and invested as a community. So again, Mark mentioned this, the new economic development reality is that investment goes where talent is and talent goes where quality of life is, and that is the economic reality we're working in. So here are the leads.
Can I ask a question just with regard to some of that? So I read a case study around why, who relocated? Was it Amazon or somebody who relocated in sort of the DC area, which isn't an affordable place to live, but they ended up locating like some headquarters there because of the fact that they had an educated workforce and they were willing to commit to, funding their, community colleges and doing some of this work and doing, more tech training K through 12. And it was really interesting because, there are different reasons that people select a site, right? I mean, and so, what you're speaking to is, when I think about workforce ready, I mean, we have a university and we have a community college. And I mean, do you feel like those, and then of course there's some quality of life issues too here that I think are really important. Do you find that compelling to the people that you're talking to? I mean, it seems like
absolutely.
It would be to me if I were an employer. Like I have a workforce built in that has tech experience and engineering experience and science research and that. So.
Absolutely. And our region really is working hard to develop those skills based on industry feedback. We're really working hard to hear industry, and you'll hear some stories that we have around that. But
I think we have a great example of how Front Range Community College, Ames Community College, UNC, CSU are coming together to produce a more nimble set of upskilling opportunities that's also led by business. And I think Sandy or Adam will speak to that here in just a little bit. Yep. But it is an asset. Yeah, it is an asset. And the education attainment levels across Weld and Larimer, if we had the slide, you'd see a high predominance of graduate degrees, bachelor's degrees in Larimer County, a high preponderance of certificates, 2-year degrees in Weld, which really is driving these talent solutions need to cross all levels. And that even speaks without private training vendors, to kind of round out then that public sector ecosystem.
Yeah, and to speak to the NIMBYism is like, that's a real thing, and it's across the country.
It
There's a
is,
lot
yeah.
of that. And
Yeah.
I guess just any feedback that you receive when you hear some of those, if you hear comments like that about us, would be really helpful in sort of how we craft our land use code and our building, right? I mean, we want to be amenable. I mean, we obviously want to have standards, but at the same time, we don't want to discourage the right businesses from coming in because of if there's any perceived notions about the way we operate. And we are looking at accelerated permitting. I mean, some of that is driven by the state, so.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It looks like Commissioner Shattuck McNally has a question.
So when I hear, when we have some of these folks coming in are going to require a lot of infrastructure and maybe more electricity or wastewater, water, and you say, well, we have to decide if this is a good idea. So who's we and how do you decide that, and what information from our community development? Because that also, I think, is a policy issue. We have a lot of conversations about this right now with data centers and other things coming in. We had a discussion on this with the governor's office and other counties last week as I attended the retreat. And someone used an example, and I'm trying to pull it up my brain. I've had a lot of meetings over the last few days about there was somewhere, I want to say maybe the east of the metro area, that an industry came in and is now pulling more energy than two, like Aurora and other city combined. And I'd like, well, where does that infrastructure come from, and does that take away from the municipalities and the ratepayers, and how does that impact them? And if we have rolling heat waves and we have to shut down, it can't keep up with demand, what are the consequences from that? And so I think there's that balance. So who's we, and how do you help? What's a rubric, or how do you bring in subject matter experts and also policymakers about, hey, if we add this and it adds this extra strain on, there's lots of things to consider. And so I'm wondering how that all comes into the discussion.
So we have some great economic development partners up in northern Colorado, and I'm very thankful for that. They're very cognizant. It's really the municipalities take a look at these projects and say, is this a fit? What kind of jobs does this create? There's a whole lot of controversy. You bring up data centers on the footprint, the demands of data centers versus the jobs created, which are very few. And so each community is really having those debates and conversations internally, and they submit sites where they feel that is a good fit for their communities. And you really see that reflected for Larimer County in the sites submitted. So far this year, 232 sites have been submitted to these projects that are coming from the state, and 65 of them are Larimer. So Larimer's making decisions. They're saying, this is not a good fit for us. It's a great project, but we just don't either we don't have the sites that can accommodate it, or it's just not what we're aiming for. So we really rely on our municipal partners to make those calls. And I don't know, not that I would see bad behavior anywhere, but I don't. I think they're very thoughtful in thinking through those infrastructure things, and they're thinking long run with their communities. So hope that answers.
And Janine, when you say
Thank you.
Larimer, you mean those municipalities in the county, the geographic region?
Yes,
not-
Larimer
not you
County.
all.
Sorry, yeah, Larimer County. Okay.
Well,
So
Commissioner Stevens, if we may, how about we move to the next, that was core priority number one,
Okay.
attraction work. If we're ready, we could move into business
Yes,
retention and
and are we
expansion.
doing okay on time? We're a little
Yeah,
tight
we're a
now.
little,
Okay,
we've got a little
so-
bit of an aggressive slide deck, but
Okay,
yeah.
that's all right. We will
Okay.
save questions for the end if we have time.
Great.
And this is my section to speak to, Adam Crow again. So business retention and expansion is one of our most important activities as a team, and it actually leads to the majority of the work that we do as an economic development team. So it's just one slide, but I want to spend a little bit of time on it just to illustrate the importance of it, because it is going to be the seed that actually leads to the blooms that we're going to talk about through the rest of the presentation. So business retention and expansion, you can see it defined here. You can see some of our activities. The way that I would define it in addition to this is we really do need to understand what's going on with our businesses throughout the county. And we need to understand what their challenges are. We need to understand what's helping them grow and helping them to succeed so that, again, we can maximize that and help them to grow. And over the last several years, especially since the pandemic, we've been focusing more on business resiliency. And our definition of business resiliency is how do we understand the needs of businesses so that we can help them with the challenges they're currently facing, with the ultimate goal of helping them to survive not just the week, not just the year, not just the decade, but into future generations. So how do we make sure that this business moves on through the county and continues to contribute into the future? And that is a team sport. We can't do that alone, and we definitely cannot do it as just a county. And we've talked a lot about our municipal partners, and we've talked a lot about our chambers and our educators. All of them come to play when it is business retention and expansion. And so just to give you a couple of examples, it's really not uncommon for us to go out and be meeting with a business and then go, you know what? This is beyond just our department to handle. We need to reach out to our Small Business Development Center. We need to reach out to our educators. We need to reach out to the Forge, say, or our municipal partners. It's also very common that our municipal partners who are having very similar conversations with businesses within their geographic areas are reaching back out to us and say, we just had a conversation and we need your help with it. Now, workforce almost always comes up, but it's not just workforce. So one of the things that I think we can all recognize over the last 5 to 6 years, businesses that have been on, a type of business that's been on a real roller coaster are our restaurants and our commercial food businesses. And the pandemic certainly had some impacts on their work, but it went beyond that. And through our conversations with them in groups, we realized through what they were saying to us is that it wasn't just revenue that was hurting them, but they also did not have enough staff to make sure that they were meeting current food code requirements, meaning they didn't have enough food protection managers or they didn't have enough individuals who knew basic food safety. And part of the challenge around that is that Larimer County no longer within our borders offered that type of training. So we reached out to our Department of Health and Environment, we reached out to our Extension Office, and us 3 departments together were able to stand up a food protection manager training, which is still going on greatly. It's run by the Extension Office. We even put in some seed money to help that get started. The Health Department has done the same, and Extension is off and running and doing some success with that, or having some success with that. Other examples in sort of this bigger picture are our sector partnerships, which we'll hear about later. So if we talk to enough businesses within one industry and we go, shoot, they're all having the same challenges, how do we get them together in a room so that they can start to address those challenges together and identify solutions to move forward that they want, and then we will support those solutions. So we'll see more of that. And then Sandra is going to share an example with us about our Work-Based Learning Alliance, which gets at much of what Mark was discussing in bringing our education partners together. But before we do that, I'm going to switch it over to Sandra for just a moment to talk about a specific example, because it's not just these bigger picture things in BR&E that we're solving on a daily basis, but sometimes it's one business at a time. Maybe it's just that one challenge which is unique to that one business. So Sandra, if you'd please.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm Sandra Jackham. I am an economic development specialist with the team. And I focus heavily on business retention and expansion. And so a specific example, it's hard, when somebody says, tell me one story. I have so many. But one great example, just in a business retention and expansion visit, I go in, with information for the business, but always an open mind to what some of their concerns are or what some of their needs may be. And I was visiting with a company in Fort Collins in unincorporated Larimer County, interstates, and learned that they are growing. They're expanding across northern Colorado. They needed to bring on some more talent. They do a lot of partnership work for the construction industry, so they're off on sites. And through just getting to learn about their company, I discovered that they do a lot of work on site also, and then found out that they're based out of Iowa. And I said, "Have you ever worked with youth?" And the HR lady said, "Well, yeah, we do. We actually have a youth apprenticeship program in Iowa." And I said, "Iowa? Come to Colorado. Like, we've got money for that, you know?" And so I talked with her about the state apprenticeship tax incentive, and talked with her about the apprenticeship consultant that is in, our county, like right next door to me. Talked about all the supports that are offered, how our school districts are aligning really well with apprenticeship opportunities for their students, and got her really excited and said, well, this would be great. We should try and pilot this. So I was able to make an introduction to the apprenticeship consultant who has been working with the company, the person who leads the program out of Iowa, and has been working with our school districts to help bring that program here to Fort Collins for them to pilot it in Colorado, because they do have other locations that they might be able to expand. So for me, it's really about understanding who the company is, what they do, to know how I can make connections with our own community to make sure they're getting their needs met. So that was a really great example for me about how I can walk in and be able to make the connections happen, because I have that regional community support where I can understand who all the players are and what they're doing. Yes.
And before we leave business retention and expansion, it would be good for you all to know that this work has become important enough that over the last 6 to 8 years, we've formed a regional, meaning Northern Colorado, business retention and expansion partnership that meets monthly. And our focuses are not only to help and support each other as we're dealing with individual business crises or individual business challenges, but also to make sure that we all have a baseline of understanding of the resources that are available throughout Northern Colorado, and bringing to bear the fact that one community might have something that another doesn't, but there's no reason we can't share those resources. And so that partnership is thriving and doing very well. And it has led to us being even better when it comes to identifying challenges. And right now, knowing that we have some challenges that are outside of our control, specifically around federal government, the federal government shutdown and some of the tariff impacts, we do have a questionnaire that's out to our Northern Colorado businesses, and we've gotten about 100 responses. And we're looking forward to reviewing those for both Weld and Larimer County so that we can understand some of the big trends and start to focus our energies and go back and talk to specific businesses that respond.
Okay, we're going to shift gears here.
All right, so I'm going to talk about the work that our team does within the workforce development and talent pipeline. This is our superpower, and I always tell people I love working with businesses, but I grew up on the workforce side of the house, and so I sometimes feel like I get to go out there and represent both sides of our house. So our role within this region is a lead, a connector, and a convener. This sets us apart from our municipal partners because we have that workforce component that makes us really experts. Not only do we have it in our own house, but we are well integrated with all of our education partners across the community. I know you mentioned we have a four-year college, we have a community college, so does Weld, and we make sure that all those folks are talking to each other and that they're talking to workforce centers to make sure that we're all addressing any kind of level of talent needs that our businesses may have. Janine mentioned this when she was talking about attraction. Talent has become a primary factor in business attraction. When I started doing this work 5 years ago and I went to economic development conferences, they didn't talk about talent. They spent like 2% of their time talking about talent. Nowadays, that's all they talk about. You go to a conference and that's all they're talking about is workforce. And so that put us in a position where it wasn't a concern for us. We had it handled. We had the connections. And so we feel really good about what we can bring to businesses and how we can support and help them. And so having that workforce readiness is bringing regional competitiveness. We're making sure that we're aligning our education partners with our businesses. You've already heard a couple of times that we really seek that input from our industry partners to make sure that our education partners are preparing the right workforce and that match is happening for the community. That spike we saw in Larimer County of our young 20s, we want to keep those young folks in our community as much as we can. And so Mark alluded to a partnership with CSU, Front Range, Ames, and UNC, where we're bringing those folks together to really try and get those students off their campuses and coming and seeing our local small businesses who they don't know about. They don't know that these great opportunities exist, and so we're working very, very hard on that partnership. So we have representatives from all four of those institutions meeting with us regularly. We're working on really cool projects with CSU right now to create more of those partnerships and to make more of those introductions. You can see up here that we have played a huge role in convening the NOCO Works community, and so a lot of really great talent development systems that have put together a regional talent plan. I always tell folks this is kind of the workforce sister to NOCO Ready is our NOCO Works group. They're talking together about all of the barriers that are in play for our businesses with regards to talent and for our talent to connect to those businesses. We have served on our business services team, we've served over 1,000 employers, assisting 130 job postings through our new system Connecting Colorado since June of 2025. That new system is just getting into play, and so we're really excited to see where that'll go. Our team holds hiring events for businesses, so this is, more of our specific business service folks. We had 38, and I think this is one of our superpowers too. Hiring events are extremely successful and a great way for job seekers to really understand what they're applying for, a great way for the employers to really find meaningful applicants. So we get really excited about those. We are not only working with CSU on some partnership programming, but we participate in some of their hiring events to support their businesses, to support students. Work-based learning is a huge component of the workforce talent work that we do. We have always been integrating work-based learning on the workforce side of the house. It is my passion project. I do business retention expansion, but I have lived work-based learning for over 15 years. And it is one of the best ways for a business to introduce new talent into their organization and a great way for job seekers to find meaningful work. Our department alone plays in work-based learning. And so, this fiscal year since July, we've placed 47 youth and adults into work-based learning experiences. I support businesses in connecting with all of our education partners for work-based learning. When a business says to me, workforce is a challenge, I say, what are you doing that's innovative? And what are some of the different ways you can bring talent in? And work-based learning is one of the most powerful ones. And so being able to connect those businesses to our education partners also is very important. I mentioned our apprenticeship consultant. She's a state consultant who represents our region. She's from Northern Colorado, lives in Northern Colorado, works in Northern Colorado, and Northern Colorado businesses care a lot about that. And so having that expertise in-house that can handhold a business, walk them through that process of building out a program, which can feel very big and overwhelming to a company, but it can be a very powerful workforce development tool. Having that person there, you can see we do a lot of support with apprentices across Larimer County. And then, of course, we have our resource navigator through NOCO Works, which is a one-stop shop for talent solutions across Northern Colorado. So businesses, educators, residents can come and access information to learn where they can find different talent solutions and resources across northern Colorado. I'm going to talk, before we move on really quick, I do want to just let you all know that we do have a Northern Colorado Work-Based Learning Alliance. I know I talked about work-based learning and the importance of it. We're seeing a lot of state engagement in work-based learning across the workforce systems, but also through the Department of Education. And so we saw early on, about 10 years ago, this initiative being named in the Talent 2.0 report that our region did, that work-based learning was an important initiative to take on. And our team was tagged, and Adam and Mark started it and then handed it off to me. And I've been running the NOCO Work-Based Learning Alliance in collaboration with Weld County. We're in our 9th year. So we have been pulling together partners across Weld and Larimer, all of our education partners, so we're representing K-12 and higher ed. We have workforce partners. We have nonprofit organizations. We even have businesses, a couple handfuls that participate in monthly meetings that we have. So these folks all come together. The purpose of this is to really align our efforts to make it easier and more efficient for businesses to connect to talent through work-based learning. And so some of the successes out of that alliance have been shared platforms like the Handshake platform for higher ed, where businesses engage. It's like the labor exchange for businesses and higher ed students. We were able to get all of our higher ed partners, including our community colleges, on that same system. So it's a one place for businesses to go to post a position and reach all those students. We, at our table, we had a huge vision of all of our K-12 schools being able to do that, and we were able to facilitate those discussions and conversations and get all of our schools to move toward one system, which is Zello. And so all of our Larimer County school districts, plus one of our charter schools, are using that system. And then we've also bled into Weld County, and there's about 4 school districts in Weld County that have joined that, and they work together as a collaboration. So they have their own meetings where they work together on processes on how to share this platform. So a business can post a position and access any student that's within any of those districts. Teachers can go in and find opportunities and partners from businesses in our community if they need somebody to come in and talk to students. So that's been a really huge success. Getting everybody to use same language with businesses was a big deal. We're bringing competitors to the table and encouraging them to work together. And so that is something that I'm really proud of. Our listserv is over 100 folks, and we usually average around 25 to 30 folks per meeting, and that hasn't changed in the last 9 years. So that has been a really, really great collaborative that has brought competitors in the education world specifically together to work together on work-based learning. Thank you.
I wanted to quickly add too, on the not so fun side of the spectrum, when you have a business that is shedding employees. We recently had the banner announcement in Larimer County. We are the rapid response team for those kinds of announcements when it's 50 or more employees that are being shed. Those warnings come up through the state to us. And I'm really proud of the work we did with Banner. We partnered with Weld to hold a reverse job fair. So we brought in other healthcare providers. We looked at all the jobs that were being shed and put together. I think there were 11 different businesses and healthcare entities there to try to help get those people very quickly reemployed. And those employees got training from us on how to navigate unemployment benefits. So it's another thing that we do when the story isn't quite as happy. So.
Yes. So let's talk industries.
I think Laura Walker.
Yeah, I'm really sensitive to time. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we've touched on industry sector partnerships a couple times already in this presentation, and I think it's an area that's very familiar for the commissioners. And we already talked a little bit too about the importance of data and research and how this department takes a lead role in managing that so that they can make better informed decisions and recommendations in their work. I think we should skip up to the incentives because that's an area we've not talked about yet, and I want to be sure that there's also time for the future focus. So if we could cover those last two things, because we've also delayed some questions from commissioners, and I'm sensitive to that too. So thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so, and I can't get my deck to forward either. So, in talking about incentives, we do have some incentives as a county, which I'm sure you're highly aware. You voted on a few business personal property tax incentives. It's an area where I think it's important for the county to have some tools that support our municipalities and can layer in those when those projects make sense. And what is great about our incentives is that we can manage them on a case-by-case basis to compete for those high-value projects that come our way. So we've got a few. So as you probably know, this year was a big year for enterprise zone tax credits. It was a redesignation year. Every 10 years, the enterprise zone gets redesignated across the state. So we served as the lead for that effort. And counties approach it a different way. We really wanted to have our municipalities drive that work because they're the ones doing in the trenches in their communities. So we partnered with them. We have a fabulous GIS department here. I cannot say enough about our GIS department and the kinds of support they offered us to go talk to our municipal partners. So we sat down with them individually, talked through maps, what's available with the enterprise zone going forward, what fell off the enterprise zone, which is a good news story. And we worked with them to come up with the block groups that we wanted to submit as a county. It was probably a 6-month effort. A lot of our communities don't have GIS groups, so we were literally going in being their GIS support. So we submitted our application in July, and I'm happy to say it was approved as submitted. So we have a new enterprise zone going in 2026. We have partners who are well-equipped now, as well as we're putting together our marketing plans to go out and market those tax credits to employers. They're tax credits that are centered around job creation and investment. They're for distressed areas of the county and municipal areas. There's 3 criteria, and that is population growth, high unemployment, and a per capita income that's significantly below the state average. So those are the 3 criteria that qualify. Great success story. Berthoud was almost entirely an enterprise zone 10 years ago, and today none of it qualified. So a little tricky for them with a few companies that we may be grandfathering in, but really great work is being done through these tax credits. We want to really help companies to utilize them more. Then we've got our 3 business personal property tax rebates. You can see the statistics there, but combined investment of $180 million with those 3 companies. We're offering a capped amount of rebates. Our business personal property tax incentive is a 5-year incentive as it stands today. So $155 million in rebates. It's for a total of 1,950 total jobs at an average weighted salary of $130,000. That is a pretty good living right there. I was doing the math on what does that mean for us in terms of added payroll. So that equates to $253 million in additional payroll that these companies are creating. So for the cost of that incentive and this benefit, not to mention multiplier effects, which, we're just beginning to get our hands around what that means in terms of multiplier effects. So then we also have the LIDER grant that Adam spoke to, helping those companies get training. So the Serve Safe program is one of the LIDER grant programs, but with that, we targeted small companies that really would fall through the cracks in terms of support with training for their employees. The idea is to create economic mobility for those companies. So we trained through that program 65 employees from 17 companies across the county. It was Loveland, Windsor, and Fort Collins. And they earned certificates like welding certificates, composting, 3G, 4G machining certificates to help them, have a career path and support the business. So,
Couple other things around incentives. The enterprise tax credit, state of Colorado funded, lighter federal funded, and then the business personal property tax, Larimer County, just to illustrate that. And interesting enough, it shows up as one of our many future focus, as I look to kind of switch gears. But because the incentive conversation was newer, what questions does that drive as we look at then really our last slide here around a future focus?
I think, look, one thing I wanted to add so the public listening can hear this is the payroll added per year is almost twice the 5-year investment the county has made. So the 1.55 million is over a 5-year period, not all at one time. And it's a rebate. The investment must be made to receive that. If it's not carried through, it doesn't happen. So we have to see the job, see the payroll, see the equipment change before those incentives are rebated back to the business. So just for the listening public, it isn't a one-for-one. We do make an investment over a period of time. They must make it upfront.
Do you have some questions? Go ahead, Commissioner Cross.
So you posed a question, Mark. Are you wanting a response to that question, or is that a rhetorical question?
This would be a good place to pause and answer any questions around incentives.
Yeah. Well, one thing that comes to mind, and I think you all have spoken to this, and Adam, and that is, how do you strike a balance between the need to attract primary companies that, hire folks at primary jobs which tend to earn more wages? How do you strike that balance with small businesses? And I think you've shed some light, no pun intended, on that. But, and maybe related to that question or that idea of how we move forward to make sure we're striking that balance, and that is what percentage of our businesses in Larimer County, let's begin there, are defined as small businesses under 50 or whatever the definition is these days. So that balance, and how are we keeping that balance or adjusting that balance perhaps as needs change, moving into the future as it relates to incentives and tax breaks and other types of incentives, the workforce, educated workforce, work-based learning, all of those kinds of things. I hope that makes sense.
Well, I can certainly speak to the statistics first. So when we think about our business makeup, so our businesses that are under 50, I'd have to look for sure, but my guess is it's well over 90% of the businesses in Larimer County are 50 or fewer employees. Now, another statistic to keep in mind is that when we think about our largest employers, that 10% that are larger than 50, they do employ a considerable number of our total workforce because they are that much bigger. And so we have to balance them all. It is very important to balance them all. And you can't, it's sort of a chicken and the egg, right? We need our smaller businesses to support our larger businesses. And our larger businesses also support our smaller businesses, right? So when we think about this in concentric circles, I mean, one of the easiest ways to do it is that employees of those businesses need a place to go to lunch. Employees of those businesses need a place to buy the equipment to build the machinery or build whatever they're building. And that comes from our smaller businesses within the community. So there's this need to be in supply chains. There's also this need to create an environment where people want to live and employees want to thrive, as well as creates that environment for larger businesses. So that is a very short answer, but we need both.
May I make a quick follow-up comment, Madam Chair, and then I think I'll be done in light of the time. Well, first of all, thank you. And your comment brings up something that we've been sharing with the public recently as we've looked at the presentation dealing with navigating uncertain times. And I think when we talk about the larger employers, the top 10 largest employers, I think 8 of them or so are public sector employers. So I think that's important for the public to recognize. And we have maybe, 2,200 in the area that are federal employees, somewhere in that neighborhood. So I think that's an important point to consider. And then just appreciation, gratitude. I've learned a lot as the liaison to the Workforce Development Board. I have a dozen or so questions, but I'm going to defer those questions. And perhaps when I get together with Laura, I don't know when our next time is together, maybe we could bring one of these folks. We could have that conversation. That's all, Madam Chair. Well done. Excellent. Great stuff.
Thank you. Commissioner, any thoughts on the incentive programs that were proposed?
I think, is it by policy that it's capped, the number? How is that number? So that's by the policy that we have set, so.
That's right.
And that needs to be adjusted, because I'm sure, as we all know, expenses seem to be increasing more than revenue. So I'm wondering how often that's my thought, but that's maybe a parking lot question. Can we talk about that? How do we judge that, and how do we be nimble enough to react to
Yeah, you
market
bet.
changes, or how that is? I think this is really important for us to get the right, retain and attract all those right businesses, to have those jobs with the wages and the careers that we want to have here to be able to meet, workforce. I think we have such amazing talent and workforce here. We need to maintain those folks, and so I think it's like bringing all those pieces together. I can see how this is really a amazing team. You're all amazing that bring those pieces all together to address all this. So those are just a question I have for maybe another time, because I know we're out of time, but I just want to thank you all for this. Has been very thought-provoking. So I'll probably have more questions, and I can send them through Laura. Thank you.
Commissioner, I think you teed up a great question, and that is, should the incentive policy be reviewed? And we've been talking about that quite a bit. The staff is working on that, and we will come back with a work session just on that topic, because we do think it hasn't been looked at in quite some time, and it may still be suitable, it may not. And so you all will come back with some recommendations.
That's right.
And that was the reason for my question. Thank you.
Thanks. Any sort of closing thoughts as we have a few more minutes that you want to present from this slide, or any wrap up?
I think just looking ahead, we've got some buckets, 2026 forward, focusing on workforce development, business and economic development tools, in particular the incentive policy review, rolling out the enterprise zone so it's well-oiled and ready, in the regional collaboration kind of bucket, looking at a launch of this new place-based marketing strategy, AI-informed. So we are in control of our story in Northern Colorado as we look at talent looking to move here, as we look at businesses looking to move here. I would illustrate out of the county strategic plan, the power of the P card, local spending. So we're in partnership with our internal finance team to roll out new commercial cards, and doing some more work in that small business space. We look forward to. We also are working to modernize our digital footprint through a variety of means, and then some strategic and responsive policy navigation. The governor has an executive order. We're waiting to find out what that vision is to organize economic development, workforce development, K-12 at a state level, and then, of course, federal reauthorization is unclear. So that's how I'd wrap that up. But, I want to, again, thank Sandra, Adam, Janine, and of course, everybody in the room here, Laura, Lori, Lorenda, and the three of you for your ongoing support and permitting us the time to come and speak, give you an overview.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I may let Laura Walker, our health and economic, human and economic health director, Do you have any parting words for us?
Only
or-
to say thank you to the staff for this
Okay.
wealth of information, and thank you to all of you for listening. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
and thank you for all, I do thank you for all the information. I had one page of paper. I wrote as tiny as I could. There was so much information here that was so great and so valuable as we move forward. And just know that we want to be in partnership with you. And so if there are spaces where you're seeing where we can be more helpful, our role is some of that, making sure that housing gets built so people want to come here, right? I mean, we have a role in this too, not only to support all of you, but really to create an environment that is amenable for people to, live here and develop businesses here. So we want to make sure that you know that we're partners in that work. So with that, we did it. It's 11:30. We invite you back too, because I think that there, for me at least, and I imagine for my colleagues, there's some questions about what federal funding looks like, what funding looks like going forward, how we keep the momentum going with maybe some reduced resources. So maybe some future topics. But thank you all for being here. And with that, we are adjourned. Thanks.